You know that feeling when you're staring at a long academic article and you just don't know where to start? Well, today we're going to break down a couple of really powerful reading techniques that will help you cut right through the noise. And we're going to use a pretty fascinating article about AI and deepfakes to show you exactly how it's done. So, we're going to zero in on two key skills: surveying and skimming. Honestly, you can think of these as your secret weapons for academic reading. They help you read smarter, not harder, so you can quickly get the main ideas and find specific info without getting bogged down in all the details. Okay, let's kick things off with surveying. It's kind of like looking at a map before you start a road trip. Surveying gives you that bird's eye view of the article, so you understand its layout before you really get into the content itself. So, our very first question is all about the big picture. Where does the article begin? Where's the main discussion? And where does it wrap up? Finding these key landmarks gives us a mental map of the whole text. And the technique we use for this is called surveying. It's a really quick scan. You're not reading for deep detail here. Instead, your eyes are just jumping to the title, any headings, and maybe the first and last sentences of paragraphs to see how the whole argument is put together. And just like that, we've got our map. We can see the introduction is in the first two paragraphs. Then the body, the main part of the discussion, runs all the way from paragraph 3 to 14. And finally, the conclusion wraps everything up from paragraphs 15 to 17. See? Now we know exactly where to look. All right, so now that we have our map of the territory, let's zoom in a bit. This is where our second skill, skimming, comes into play. We're going to use it to quickly find specific answers inside that structure we just identified. First up, we've got a classic definition question. What in the world is a deep fake? For a question like this, you definitely don't need to read the whole article. We just need to hunt for that one specific definition. And would you look at that? By just scanning for the keyword deepfake, our eyes land right at the end of the very first paragraph. The author gives us a perfect, clear definition right there. That is the power of skimming. Okay, next question. This one is what we call a reference question. The text mentions a tool like this. Our job is to be a detective for a second and figure out exactly what tool the author is talking about. And to solve this little mystery, all we have to do is look at the paragraph that came right before it. A quick skim of paragraph 1 shows that the author was talking about a special AI tool that can detect deepfakes. The answer was hiding in plain sight. Now for a bit of a broader question, what are the dangers of deepfakes? When you see a question like this, it's a signal to start skimming for a list of risks or negative consequences the article brings up. A quick skim leads us right to a heading that says, "The problem with deepfakes." You see, headings are like giant signposts, and this one is basically screaming, "The answer is here." And sure enough, in paragraphs 4 and 5, the author lays out these three big dangers. Now for a follow-up. Of all those dangers, which one are the authors most worried about? For this, we're not just looking for a list of facts, we're looking for the author's opinion or emphasis. And boom, the answer is right here in this quote. When you're skimming for opinions, you want to look for signal words. A phrase like "perhaps scariest of all" is a massive clue. It tells us exactly what the authors think is the biggest deal. Moving on, our next question is about the how. How do researchers actually spot these deepfakes? Once again, our brain should be thinking, okay, I'm looking for a list of methods or techniques. And there they are. The article breaks down two main methods. In paragraph 8, it talks about the first one, analyzing a person's unique behaviors. And then in paragraph 9, we get the second, finding tiny technical glitches in the video. The fact that they're in separate paragraphs makes them really easy to find. This one's a simple yes or no question. Do these detection tools have any flaws or weaknesses? We need to skim for any language that talks about how well these tools actually work or don't work. And the answer is a very clear yes. When we skim paragraph 11, we find a great signal word, unfortunately. As soon as you see a word like that, you know there's a problem coming. And this quote confirms the exact limitation. Now, this next question basically hands us the answer on a silver platter. It points us to a section with a specific title. So we don't even have to skim paragraphs here. We can just survey the headings to find our answer almost instantly. And there it is, plain and simple. Journalists. The article goes on to explain why in paragraphs 13 and 14, but by just targeting the right heading, we found the main answer in just a few seconds. All right, for our final question, we need to find the author's main takeaway message. And since we already mapped out the article, we know exactly where to look for the conclusion in those final paragraphs. And the answer, right there in the final paragraph, is a definite no. The authors make it really clear that detection technology alone is not going to solve the problem. They make this crucial point that it's just the first step, which tells us there's a lot more work to do. So there you have it. We've worked our way through the article and answered all the questions. Now let's do a quick recap of the skills we use so you can add them to your own personal reading toolkit. It really just boils down to the simple 4-step process. First, you survey to get the big picture. Second, you look closely at the question to find your keywords. Third, you skim the text using those keywords to hunt for the answer. And finally, you formulate your answer based on what you found in the text. The most important thing to remember is this. Surveying and skimming aren't about reading less. They're about reading with a clear purpose. When you master these skills, you can approach any text with confidence, work way more efficiently, and find the information that really matters.